In this world, gods exist, but they all vanished into other worlds. Those known as Kashi are the only ones that can return the gods to this world by confining them in beads called Sai. A mysterious man speaks to our protagonist named Ichiyo, and he shows him a technique called Totoka. The man tells Ichiyo to pound every detail of the technique into his mind because it will allow him to capture any god. Once Ichiyo becomes a Kashi, he will be able to make any god his. He will even be able to bring back the legendary 4 evil gods to this world. Most importantly for Ichiyo, this will give him the power to free his adopted father from his pillar. Years later, a man named Tenko comes flying out of a fountain, and he greets the gatekeepers. The keepers wonder where Ichiyo is, so Tenko explains that he had a hard time coming back because he can't swim. Tenko panics because it's his fault that Ichiyo drowned, but he can't stop himself from laughing when he sees how funny Ichiyo's face looks. Tenko tries to wake him up, but it's no use. Tenko must resort to mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but Ichiyo wakes up just in time to knock him out. The two argue about the importance of learning how to swim, but Ichiyo sends Tenko off a bridge and tells him to learn how to swim through the clouds. Ichiyo yells at a clerk for sending him to a place with no gods, but it turns out to be his fault. The clerk offers to pay big money for the beads Ichiyo already has, but he doesn't want to give those up. His mistake is seen by everyone, and they call him the infamous failure. A guy named Rakan feeds the pair, but the guys argue because Tenko won't stop teasing Ichiyo about being a failure. Rakan reminds Ichiyo that he isn't some homeless shelter, and he's actually a skilled trainer. Ichiyo refuses to receive any training from Rakan, so Rakan offers to retrain Tenko as well. Tenko thinks that Ichiyo needs Kashi training more than anything, so they just start arguing again. Rakan thinks about how strange their relationship is because Tenko is Ichiyo's servant god. As the name suggests, servant gods are supposed to be completely obedient to their masters. They would even take their own lives if their masters ordered it. However, Tenko and Ichiyo act more like friends. Ichiyo's other servant god named Kaka appears and asks to be fed. Rakan tries to feed her instead, but she quickly rejects him. Tenko calls Rakan a goofball, and he can't believe that he's a serious trainer. Rakan is insulted, so he vows to show them what he can do. They go to visit a servant god named Gyuki, who Rakan taught everything he knows about farming. Gyuki demonstrates what he's doing by first crushing a stone into dust. Ichiyo thinks it's pretty boring work for a god, but this world is covered in rocks, and preparing fields so farmers can grow food is important. Long ago, when 8 million gods were around, this world was abundant with flowers, greenery, and food. However, once the gods disappeared, the land became barren and lifeless. Gyuki prepares to bury a worm that will return health to the land, but Rakan points out that that worm is cheap and it won't yield a decent harvest. Gyuki was only doing what his master told him to do, and his master named Bui arrives. Ichiyo instantly calls Bui a scammer because he was going to use the cheap worm to make it look like the land was healthy, and then he was going to sell it as farmland. Ichiyo says that he will have to report this, so Bui blames Gyuki for exposing him. Bui turns his anger towards Ichiyo, and he recognizes him as the worst Kashi in history. Bui starts making fun of Ichiyo's servant gods because they look untrained, but Kaka kicks him right in the face. Kaka beats him up good, so he leaves, but he gives something to Gyuki first. Gyuki explains that his master isn't mad because of what he gave him, and Ichiyo asks if he can have it. Gyuki refuses to just give away his master's gift, but he takes a liking to Ichiyo's necklace. Rakan tells him that it's a ridiculous request, but Ichiyo shocks everyone when he agrees to the trade. Everyone tries to convince him not to trade his Sai, so Ichiyo just gives it to Gyuki for one day. After they leave, Rakan wonders why he wanted the item so bad, so Ichiyo shows him that Bui was actually threatening Gyuki. He gave him a discount card for a meat market as a threat to sell him as a cow to be slaughtered. Rakan is disgusted by Bui's behavior towards his servant god, but everyone is amazed by Ichiyo for taking the card away before Gyuki noticed. Gyuki admires the Sai beads, but Bui arrives to wonder where he got them from. Gyuki explains that he's supposed to give it back to Ichiyo, but Bui has plans of his own. Our group finishes up a meal provided by Rakan, but something is wrong with Kaka. Rakan panics as it's clear that something is happening to Ichiyo's Sai beads, and Ichiyo determines that Kaka's contract is being broken. Kaka transforms as Ichiyo loses control over her, and she takes off. Back with Bui, he finishes a ritual that breaks the contract between servant and master. His goal is to ruin Ichio, as he is sure that he won't even be Akashi after this is found out. Just then, Gyuki panics and Bui exits his house to find the transformed Kaka. She unleashes her voice, so Gyuki begs his master to run away as he begins to transform. Gyuki goes on a rampage as he is now under Kaka's control, and Bui begs for his life. Kaka orders the beast to eliminate Bui, but a white-haired man comes out of nowhere to save him. Bui is shocked when he realizes that this guy is Tenko, and Tenko tells him not to address him so casually. Kaka tells Tenko to get out of the way so she can punish Bui, and Tenko agrees that the world would be better off without the jerk. Ichio arrives to scold Tenko for encouraging Kaka, and he orders Kaka to stand down. Kaka is determined to make Bui pay for insulting her master, but Ichio threatens to punish her, and she is left speechless. He tells her that the guards will be arriving soon, and she will receive a terrible punishment if she hurts a human. Kaka begins to cry, but her voice does major damage to everyone. Bui gives Ichio his beads back, so he begins to forge the contract. Ichio performs the Totoka, and the gods are left in amazement. Even Bui is in awe of the ritual, and he can't believe that this is the infamous failure. Tenko explains that the dancing portion of the Totoka is not why Ichio is known as a failure. He tells Bui to cover his ears because the ritual is not over and the final part is really intense. Ichio begins the singing portion of his Totoka, but it's not as nice as the dance. It's more like screaming, but it gets the job done. This is no ordinary Totoka, and it's because Ichio can't sing to save his life. Normally the gods are charmed by the Totoka, and it leads to the contract being formed. Ichio, on the other hand, is completely tone deaf. His ritual uses his bad singing to render the gods unconscious, and the contract is formed using force. Gyuki has turned into a powerless baby, but Tenko says that he was lucky. If he was hit by Ichio's song directly, he would have died. Bui is stunned to learn all this, and he wonders just how strong Ichio really is. Surviving Ichio's song means that his servant gods must also be extremely powerful, but Tenko says that he's just his normal self. Later, Rakan explains that he can't turn Gyuki back to his old self, so he will be taking care of him from now on. He was Bui's source of income, so Bui will have to earn his keep without him. A fight breaks out between the tiny gods, which lightens the mood, but a very angry man appears to take Ichio away. His name is Kanshori, and he brings Ichio to see Ridikai. Ichio explains that he couldn't find any gods in the area of Japan that he went to, but the guys say that he has it all wrong. They explain that most gods have left for a festival that they attend every year, but certain gods stayed behind to stand guard. Ichio is confused, so they go on to say that they didn't send Ichio to Japan to find some weak gods. Ichio is stunned as he realizes that they sent him there to find the 4 evils. More earthquakes have been occurring in this world, so they must bring back the 4 evils so they can become the pillars that hold up the land. Right now, Ichio's grandfather named Hakugo is supporting the world as its pillar. It's taking a great toll on him, however, and it's uncertain if he will be able to last for much longer. This is why Ichio must return to Japan, so Ichio agrees to go. The guys then wonder what will happen first. Will the entire world sink, or will Ichio bring back the 4 evils? Sometime later, a boy enjoys some free time, but he's surprised to see a body floating in the water. The boy brings Ichio home, where Ichio realizes that Tenko must have let him go while teleporting again. Tenko appears to take credit for making sure that Ichio was brought to this home safely, but Ichio scolds him for putting them in this situation in the first place. Some little old lady thanks the ocean god for protecting Ichio, and she explains that the ocean god recovers people that are lost at sea. Ichio, of course, is pretty curious about this god, so the old granny tells Ryo to take him to the shrine. This place is a small island in Japan, so Ichio is glad that they at least made it to their destination. Tenko tries to take credit for that too, but he just ends up paying the price. The little nerd says he has a sister, so Ichio wonders where she is right now. Ryo explains that she's on another island because she goes there every year to take pictures of some birds. Ryo says that he doesn't get sad when she's not around because he has all the other islanders to comfort him. Apparently, according to this kid, everyone on the island looks out for each other like their family. Ryo's sister gets angry about stuff when she's home, so he prefers when she's gone. Ryu excitedly shows them his sister's pictures though, and it becomes pretty clear that he actually admires her a lot. Eventually they arrive at the shrine, but there isn't really anything special about it. Tenko doesn't detect the evil god there, but he does sense a strong presence. Ryu kinda feels the same way, and he explains that it feels like something precious was sealed away in the shrine. Upon returning to the house, the guys find Bowie getting absolutely hammered. The old lady has no idea who this guy is, and the guys also deny knowing him out of embarrassment. Bowie followed them to Japan because he heard that Ichio got a job from the bigwigs and he wants a piece. Unfortunately for him, Ichio explains that the job doesn't pay well and it was just forced on him. Ryu's kind of a little wimp, so he wonders if the guys are scared of their dangerous job. Ryu wonders if they are worried about not being able to return home one day because they seem totally fine with the danger. Ichio admits to him that it can be scary sometimes, but as long as he has people waiting for him back home, he will go wherever he needs to go and he won't lose to his fears. That night, Ichio is infuriated by Bowie's incessant snoring, but he gets a devious idea. He then finds Tenko outside and says that he just couldn't sleep because it was hot inside, but we see that he tied up Bowie. Tenko is also having a hard time sleeping, but it's because he hears a bell whenever he closes his eyes. Just then, the guys must dodge a flying backpack. A girl is furious because she thinks that they are just hoodlums, and she tells them that they can't just treat her house like a gang hideout. Ichio quickly tells her that they're actually tourists and her brother's letting them stay there, but the girl is totally confused. She explains that she's the only one that lives in this house, but more importantly, she doesn't even have a little brother. Everyone rushes into the house as a storm is coming, and the girl forgives them for trespassing. Before the guys can ask for more information on the little boy, the girl gives them a bunch of emergency gear. She's going to force these guys outside so they can gather the elderly living alone and evacuate them to the community center. Ichio calls her a real saint for doing all this, but she explains that she's just really paying them back for something. The group braves the horrible weather, and they successfully gather everyone at the community center. It kinda seems more like a party with everybody getting so drunk, and the girl gives Ichio the local sake. The girl doesn't partake in all the shenanigans, and she explains that she's actually from Tokyo. She really gets along with everyone, but it's only because the islanders let anyone into their family. The girl then reveals that she nearly died when she first came to the island. She was out taking pictures on some smaller island that's nearby when a brutal storm blew in, much like the one that is happening right now. She fell into the water, but amazingly she washed up in the cave where the shrine is. That's where Ryu found her, and the islanders ended up taking her in. So that's why she feels like she owes her life to the island and everyone on it. Ichio once again denies trespassing, and he explains that they washed up from the ocean just like she did. Thankfully, the old granny confirms his entire story, and Ichio's glad to hear that the girl actually does know Ryu. The granny has a good chuckle as she reminds the girl that Ryu's her brother, but the girl has no clue what she's talking about. She really starts to think that the old lady's becoming senile, but Grandma points out that Ryu is only on the island whenever the girl is. What's even more incriminating is that he's always carrying around her basic and dumb-looking pictures. The girl explains that she just gave them to the kid because he was interested in them, but she doesn't know where the kid came from. Ichio begins to piece things together like a detective, and he wonders if the ocean god is a female. The girl confirms that it is, and Ichio realizes that Ryo was talking about two different people when he mentioned his sister. Just then, a man warns that the storm is about to get a lot worse. They have no choice but to evacuate to the mountain, which works out fine for Ichio because he wanted to check something. No one has seen Ryu for a while, but Ichio tells the girl not to worry because he has a feeling about something. Ichio then has Tenko transform, and the guys say that they have found the culprit behind the deadly winds. A quick look into the sky shows Ryu covered in lightning. Ryu shows his true form, which is some tiny monster, and Ichio can tell that he's in pain. Ryu is actually what is known as a Raiju, but for some reason he doesn't have horns. Raiju call upon the lightning to feast on it, so Tenko determines that without his horns, he must be suffering from starvation. That's when Ichio realizes Ryu's horns must be what's inside the shrine, so he rushes there, but Tenko stops him from going because the shrine will soon be submerged in water. Tenko tells Ichio that he will need his help, but he thinks that they should just let the Raiju wear himself out. Bowie actually agrees that they should just wait until later, but Ichio just can't ignore Ryu's cries of pain. Ichio really swallows his pride to politely ask Tenko for help, so Tenko parts the seas like Moses and creates a path to the shrine. Ichio opens the box in the shrine to find Ryo's horns, but they're tiny, and that means that Ryo must have been an infant when he washed up on the island. Ichio determines that the goddess of the island probably hid them in the shrine when she saved Ryu. Raiju have the ability to control the weather, so the goddess probably wanted to keep the little brat in check. Unfortunately, breaking the seal has caused Ryo to completely lose control, but luckily Tenko is there to protect the guys. The two clash with each other, but Tenko becomes infuriated when Ryo attacks him. Tenko's anger is enough to crack Ichio's necklace, so Ichio tries to calm him down. Tenko doesn't even come close to listening as he knocks a little furball out of the sky and he tells Ryo to take a good look at how to really control water. Ichio demands for Tenko to stop, but Tenko just tells his master to step back and watch. Tenko then prepares to end Ryo's life, but Ichio just knocks him away with his boot. Ichio offers to give Ryo his horns back, but it also means he will have to leave the island. Ryo shows that he doesn't want his horns back, and Tenko points something out. The kid has been spoiled his entire life, so he's probably afraid of change. Unfortunately, Ryo's body is at its limits, and so is the island, so there's no other way he can stay. Ryo becomes very depressed because he must wear his horns to survive, but Ichio tells him not to worry because he can just come with him. Ryo eventually joins the group, and Ichio straight up just lies to the girl. She wants to know where Ryo is, but Ichio just tells her that the boy left the island. Ichio is some kind of compulsive liar, and he tells the girl that Ryo was inspired by her pictures. They made him want to explore the world, and that's what he's doing. The girl still wishes she knew where the kid came from, so Ichio simply says that he's a child of the island. Back in the other world, the bigwigs go to speak with some lady named Queen Tekai. She just finished up her conversation with Hakuga, but Hakuga made the guys very tense. The guys say they just couldn't help it because Hakuga is an ultimate divine beast on the same level as the Dragon King. Kanshori gives her a gift from his son who's trying to shoot a shot with her, but Ridokai is curious about something else. He wants to know if the queen has made up with Ichio, but her dumbfounded expression makes it clear that she hasn't. The queen's flashback reveals that this world is governed by 8 individuals, known as the 8 Immortals, and they are ruled by the Queen Mother of the West. Moving back a few years, we see a little girl named Haku hauling a bucket of water through the town. Soon a boy named Sanu comes by and tells her that he brought his father Kanshori's secret manuscript that she had been wanting. Haku immediately runs towards him to grab the book, but Sano asks her if she's been keeping up with the lessons he has been giving her. Haku grabs his big black stick and tosses 3 potatoes into the sky to show how good she has gotten. Unfortunately, she ends up missing all her swings and the potatoes land on her head. Everyone around them starts laughing at her, and Haku says that if Sano had lent her that book, she would have gotten better faster. Sano replies that it's a really precious book of martial arts, so he won't ever lend it to her, but if she wants, she can take a look at it. Seeing how protective he is of the book, Haku assumes that Sano must respect his father a lot. When Sano tries to act like he doesn't care about the old geezer, Haku says that it's obvious that Sano wants his father's approval. After that, Haku looks at the book and thinks that she will train hard to become stronger. Then one day she will get strong enough to work for Kanshori and the Queen Mother of the West at the Celestial Palace. Later that day, we see Sano sitting in his house beside his sick mother's bed, looking after her. Haku walks in and asks Sano about his mother's condition, but he looks depressed because she's not doing well. Haku then walks to a side table to put down some goods, and she notices a bunch of envelopes. She asks Sano about them, so he says that it's medicine that his father's servant gave them. Haku thinks that this is great news because they can't buy this type of medicine so easily, but Sano is frustrated. He wonders why his father never comes to visit himself, because that would be the best thing for his mother. Haku wants to comfort him, so she says that his father must be busy at the palace and he will come when he has time. Elsewhere, we see Kanshori frantically running in the Celestial Palace, and he finds out that the Queen Mother has been killed. Back with Haku, we see that her words have calmed Sano down. She explains to us that Sano's father is one of the 8 Immortals, and his mother has been lying in bed sick for a long time. She says that his father built this housing complex called the Anki Home, and it houses all sorts of needy people. This includes poor people who have lost their families, elderly people, and children with parents that never came back with the milk. Haku was also a lone orphan, but now she's being taken care of by her foster mother. Haku's mother explains that immortals don't get sick like humans do. Haku doesn't want Sanu's mother to suffer, so she wishes that Kensori would just make her an immortal. Later that night, Sanu's mother starts coughing, and her health starts to get worse. Sano freaks out as he refuses to let her die, and he starts running to the castle to call for his father. He bangs the gate until a hefty guard opens the window and asks him what he's doing. Sano tells him to open the gate, or to at least deliver a message to Kanshori. However, the ugly slob says that he's not going to do that, and he tells Sano to scram. Sano begins to feel helpless, but a golden-haired beast man named Seunggae says that he can deliver the message for him. Sano tells him that he's Kanshori's son, and that his mother is not going to survive the night. For some reason, after hearing that this kid is Kanshori's son, Seunggae changes his mind. Sano can't believe what he is hearing, so Seunggae reiterates that he won't be relaying his message. Seunggae apologizes for the bad timing, and he leaves Sano stunned. The next morning, we find out that Sano's mother passed away. Haku and Sano attend her funeral, and Sano cries over the fact that his father never came to visit his mother. Just then, a group of people walk in, and Sano asks them who they are. Kanshori walks in soon after, but Sano is furious at him for abandoning his mother. Sano tells him to get lost because he doesn't want to hear his father's meaningless sympathies. Sano keeps telling him about his mother's misery in her final moments, but Kensori simply walks past him. He says that he's not there to speak with Sano, and then surprisingly walks up to Haku. The kids are confused, but their confusion turns to shock when Kensori says that Haku has been chosen as the new Queen Mother of the West. The next morning, Haku wakes up in a bed in the Celestial Palace, thinking about how she couldn't get any sleep, and she wonders why she is there. Just then, a woman named Kami surprises Haku and says that she's more of a monkey than she had heard. Haku's too confused to say anything, so Kami uses her deep manly voice to tell Haku to speak up. They go to eat breakfast, but Haku just wants to know when she'll be able to go back home. Unfortunately, Kami tells her that she can't let her go because she must become the head of the palace. After several days pass, Haku realizes that she will never be allowed to go back home ever again. Haku begins to sob, and she wonders why she was chosen. Just then, she hears the voice of a young boy and stands up to find him sitting on top of the palace's wall with the white-haired man. This boy is our hero Ichio, and he asks her why she is crying. In her room, Ichio tries to give Haku some candy, but she is hesitant. Ichio warns that he will just keep it for himself, so Haku decides to give it a try. It turns out to be delicious, so Ichio says that it's his favorite. Ichio still wants to know why she was crying, so she explains that she was brought there a few days ago against her will, and she just wants to go back home. As Haku begins to cry again, Ichio dramatically tells her to keep her head up. Instead of saying something inspiring, Ichio says that she just looks like a normal human, and he wonders if the people of the palace are into kidnapping little kids now. Our noble protagonist tells her that he will get her out of there, and he demands that Tenko take them to town. Haku wonders if it's really okay for Ichio to be speaking to the white-haired man this way. She is worried because the guy looks really dangerous. Ichio explains that it's not a problem because he is Tenko's master. Tenko will obey all of his commands, so they don't have to worry about him. Haku is stunned as she looks at Ichio's necklace because it's a sai. All this makes her realize that Ichio is a Kashi, and she loses her mind because she has never seen one in person before. Ichio's annoyed by her reaction and says that he hates 3 things in this world: spicy food, bitter food, and people who call themselves Kashi. Just then, a young man comes up behind him and hits his head a bunch of times. This guy says that the 3 things he hates the most are people who talk about his height, sweet things, and kids who wander around in the middle of the night. Ichio introduces this man as his master Saiwa, and we find out that Seunggae is also there with his axe pointed at Tenko's neck. Seunggae then asks Saiwa if they have caught all the intruders. Saiwa apologizes for his student Ichio's behavior and asks Seunggae to lower his weapon. Seunggae says that he's not normally this aggressive, but something about Tenko bothers him. Seunggae stares daggers at Tenko as he asks where he came from because he hasn't seen his face around before. Ichio doesn't like how he's talking to his servant, so he bites Seunggae's tail and he must be pulled away. Saiwa tells Seunggae that if he wants to fight, he should do it away from kids, and then tells Ichio that they should get out of there. Ichio says that he wants to take Haku with them, and the little girl says that her mother must be worried about her. Unfortunately for her, Saiwa reveals that her mother has been informed of Haku's new position, and she's in favor of Haku never returning home. This makes Haku cry again as she realizes that she is all alone now. Ichio can't stand to see her crying, so he says that he will make her his servant. They will be together, so she won't have to cry anymore. Ichio tells his master that Haku will be coming with them, but Saiwa says that it's not happening. With no other options left, Ichio decides that he will just come visit Haku himself, but Saiwa says that can't happen either. He explains that if it weren't the middle of the night, the guards would not have been so lax. Ichio notices that there's a chance that Saiwa will allow it, so he tries to emotionally blackmail him with a hug. This works, so Ichio tells Haku that he will come visit her some other night. The next morning, Kami tells Haku that she's going to introduce her to some new friends. These friends turn out to be Saiwa and the divine beast Hakugo. Kami says that there's another friend she wants to introduce her to, but he has a bad leg, so they will have to go visit him instead. Haku is then taken to a temple to see one of the pillars that hold up Mount Kanran. There are 4 pillars in total, and each one used to have one of the 4 evils sealed away inside. The 4 evils left a long time ago, and the pillars won't be able to last much longer without them. This is why the 4 evils must be brought back. Just then, Kami returns with her other friend, and the guy says that he will reveal a secret to Haku. It is said that the 4 evils have all fled the world. However, the truth is that one of them was imprisoned, and his leg was cut off. One of the 4 evils cannot act as a pillar alone, so that is why all 4 evils have to be brought back. The guy points to a bone near the pillar and reveals that this is part of the leg that he lost. Haku is stunned when she realizes what this means, and Saiwa introduces her to the guy. His name is Hikai, and he is one of the 4 evils. Sometime later, Ichio comes to visit Haku. She decides not to tell him about who she met, and instead asks him about his servant god. Ichio says that his name is Tenko, and he thinks about when they first met. Thanks for watching my recap. Subscribe to the channel for more videos.